You ready? Today talks right here. We're gonna talk about it right here. We're gonna talk about everything you like. I'm gonna make it real, real clear. It's today's talks right here. We're gonna talk about it right here. I'm gonna talk about everything you like. I'm gonna make it real, real clear. Cause it's today's talks. And I'm gonna talk about it. Yeah. Cause it's today's talks. And I'm gonna talk about it, about it, about it, about it.
Hey, and welcome to this special episode of Tynee Talks. Remember, Tynee Talks and you listen. I have a very, very special guest with me on today, and it is my little brother, the one, the only, Kappa Alpha Size, King David Bates. Let's give it up for David. I always say that it's a special episode on every episode. But this is a really, 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 really special episode because today we're going to talk about why Moesha, the character, was a trash ass friend.
Well, I definitely won't be saying that about my baby.
First of all, I got to have a disclaimer. The disclaimer is, first of all, David and I are both Brandy stans, okay? We are part of the stars. We are stars. So this is in no way a reflection of Brandy Rihanna Norwood, okay? Because we love her. This is all about Moesha Denise Mitchell. So you trying to tell me you gonna sit up here and say that she wasn't a trash ass friend?
I will say that now that I'm older, maybe I thought that when I was younger that she wasn't a good friend, but when I think about it now as I'm older, in my 30s, Moesha was a privileged Black suburban teenager. Okay. And she was spoiled. She was very selfish at times, but the general character of Moesha was not bad. She was not a bad friend. She always she learned from every mistake that she made. Now, some people can't say the same. Some adults can't say the same.
I'm going to put a little pin right there. As a teenager, you couldn't tell me, first of all, that I wasn't Moesha, okay? I was Moesha, the good girl, very smart, excelled in English. You know, my girl was going to be a writer. In 2020, Moesha is a writer, you know, just well-rounded. The only thing was I was a cheerleader like Kim. Moesha couldn't make the cut. In my teenage years, Moesha could do no wrong. She was perfect. But when I'm looking at it in my 30-year-old eyes, Moesha did some very questionable things as a friend. Wasn't always the best friend. So I guess as a 30-year-old, we can sit here and say, well, were any of us really that great of friends when we were teens?
Not at all. Not at all. And I got to say, I just felt like it showed, humility that she was able to correct the things that she was doing wrong, because a lot of the things, I think she was doing it based off of her heart. That was the first thing that she thought of. So she was like, oh, if I do this and I do this, but she wasn't thinking about the consequences that would come after that. So she always showed that she had a good heart. So that's what.
You brought up a good point, because when you're a teenager, first of all, our frontal lobe
is not all the way developed.
It's not all the way developed. Okay? First and foremost, our frontal lobe is not always fully developed, so we make rash decisions. So I can get what you can say in that regard, like Moesha following her heart or whatever, like she's going with the first thing, smoking without thinking, like you said, not thinking about the consequences. But let's start at the top. Moesha first premiered in 1996 in the year of our Lords. I was 11 years old in 1996. How old were you?
Oh, Jesus.
Wait a minute, you were 9.
Yeah. Because I was like, I was 4 in 1981. So yeah, 1986. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And Moesha aired from the time I was in the 6th grade until I got to the 10th grade. So I felt like I kind of grew up with Mo to the E to the.
So Moesha ended when I was in 8th grade. Got it.
Basically, the theme song was everything.
They switched up throughout the different seasons.
It's me, it's me. Now realizing my responsibilities, it's me. My best friend's always on my mind.
I'm dead.
I gotta do what I gotta do. I gotta move on.
I think the best version of the theme song was season 4 through 6, because that's when Rodney Jerkins came in to add the extra, the futuristic.
Get a little extra razzle dazzle.
Yeah, I mean the original is fine, but what I'm saying is it really popped off in season 4.
It absolutely did. So Moesha is based on an upper middle class Black family in the Lemire Park neighborhood in Los Angeles, California. So, with all intents and purposes, they had money. Moesha's mother was deceased, and her father, Frank Mitchell, remarried another upwardly mobile Black woman, beautiful Black woman by the name of Dee, and Dee was a principal of a high school, and Frank Mitchell was a manager of a Saturn.
Yeah.
So,
let's be clear, the owner of a Saturn dealership. And let's not forget the biggest thing is that Frank was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. Let's not forget.
Tell y'all about them Kappas. They always gotta let it be known that they are Kappas.
Let's not forget, and not just the character, the actual actor, William Allen Young is a member.
Come on. And also let it be known that Brandy Rayana Norwood is also an honorary member of the illustrious Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Okay?
And the thing,
and Sonya is an actual soror.
And I have a tidbit that I've seen on Twitter about this, and it makes perfect sense. D, Shirley Ralph, is a Delta. And it makes so much sense that Moesha was AKA and how much they clashed throughout this series.
It was a clash. Now it all.
It really does. The contrast is very, very scary, actually.
Why did you get so serious? Okay. So basically, Moesha was living the dream. So if you were a young Black girl like me, you're able to see. To me, she reflected me because I was a book smart girl. I hung with, they were pretty much good kids. You know what I mean? They weren't, a lot of times in the 90s, they were trying to depict Black teens really in a very negative way, like we were just filled with violence. Like if you think about it, we don't really have teen movies. Like we can go into our roster in the 80s and 90s and there's like white teen movie after white teen movie after white teen movie showing, a very nuanced version of white coming of age stories. But when
there's one Black kid per those white movies. Let's not forget.
Absolutely, there's always a token Black friend, but you never got to see like Black teenhood or coming of age in its totality. It was always drug related or violence related. When you think about Menace to Society, those were teenagers, but looking back at them, they were like dealing with drugs and violence and shootouts. When you think about the only really teen movie that we had were 2 that I can think of, which was The Inkwell, which showed, upper middle class Black people in the Inkwell part of Martha's Vineyard, and House Party pretty much showed, the fun-loving side of being a Black teenager. But all the other movies
say The Wood too. The Wood, kind of.
And yeah, The Wood came out in 1999, but it, was kind of flashback. But yeah, really 3. We can name about 10 white films. So by the time 1996 rolls around, is, you know, we're coming off of, you know, Tupac being killed. We're at the height of the East Coast, West Coast. And you know what I mean? We got Moesha that is like a breath of fresh air. You get to see Black teens in the latest fashions, doing just regular teenage stuff, hanging out at the den, the African-centered smoothie shop, you know, that we didn't really give Andale and the den is just due back. You know, she was ahead of her time. Like everybody's woke now. Like she was super woke back then.
That is true. That's true. That is true.
So, you know, so Moesha comes on the scene, like I said, in the upper middle class Black family in the Lemire Park neighborhood of Los Angeles. And so she was something that Black girls could aspire to want to be like, you know, on the student council for feminism. You know, remember the episode where the boys just wanted to take credit or they wouldn't let girls on the council. And she's like, no, you know, we got to do it for the girls. And, you know, you're not going to shush us up, and we're not going to be on the background. If we did something, we're not going to, you know, be pushed to the back of the bus and not get our credit. You know what I mean? So let's dig right into it. Why Moesha was a little bit of a trash friend. Number one, I see you licking your lips, LL. Number one, I think she was a bad friend to Kim Parker.
Mm.
And I'm going to say my piece and I'm going to let you have the floor. But Kim's weight was always at the forefront of how not only Moesha's character interacted with her, but other characters interacted with her as she was the fat friend. One of the inaugural episodes that sticks out is the episode where Kim asks Moesha to try out for the cheerleading squad. And when they get there, they're supposed to be doing it as a buddy, and really Kim didn't want to do it alone. And Moesha made it seem like she wasn't even interested in joining. I'm only going to go support my girl. And then when the results are in, Kim, my girl, Kim made the team. And then Moesha felt the ways because she didn't make it and was trying to insult Kim. That's not good character. I don't care if you are a teenager and your frontal lobe is not fully developed. That was rude as hell.
I will say that in that episode, and it showed you the privilege that Moesha had for being the popular person in the school, is that everything came quite natural to her. So anything that she put her energy into, she normally got the best results. And in this situation, she was hyped up by Gabrielle Union's character to think like, oh, well, you're just a shoe-in and Kim is not going to be picked, and you are. So then when it was the opposite, that was a shock to her. And I don't think initially it had anything to do with Kim. It had to do with like, well, why would y'all be in my face playing like this and then y'all don't pick me? So then I felt like when Kim came and kind of was like, kind of gloat, she gloated. And in her defense, she didn't have much to gloat about. That was the first time that she probably ever came out on top of Moesha in their whole friendship, honestly. And so when she came gloating, and I think, besides, Gabrielle Union's character, like, oh, well, you look bitter, Moesha, all that little stuff, it kind of added up, and they were in front of their peeps. You know what I'm saying? In front of your peers, you want to appear a certain way. So I feel like once, Kim did her little dig, naturally the biggest dig about Kim that really people could just pinpoint right away was the difference in weight. And I want to say this too. I necessarily did not think that Kim was quote unquote big back then.
Me either.
When I look at it, I never thought that Kim was big. She wasn't the big friend. Now she was a little chubby or whatever, has some little baby cheeks or whatever, but she wasn't big to me, but bigger than all of them. But anyway, I go there to say is that when she did that dig, Moesha was trying to keep her rep intact. So that was the first thing that she could say that everybody agreed on, that they all used to say about Kim. So I felt like it was just one of those pride things that was the first thing she said because Kim said something to her. She didn't start it, but she finished it very nastily. So yes, as a friend, that was a nasty dig for her to say that when she knows that that probably was the big struggle in her friendship since they have been friends since they were in kindergarten. So yes, that was a bad friend move. But in the totality of their relationship, I don't feel like Moesha was a bad friend to Kim. I don't. Because at the end of the episode, they said they digs, they separated themselves. Kim came back, was like, I miss you. I said, I miss you too. And she said, can you watch my chair that I taught them? And she did, and they moved on. Like I always told you, Moesha always learned from her wrongs.
lesson.
Always learned from her wrongs and went on and was able to, and that's a real friend. Once you address what the issue was and you correct your behavior and move on. And that's to me, that's the definition of a real friend. That's just me. That's just my opinion.
Okay, you can say, you're trying to say that Kim started the digs, but the dig actually started when they went to go look at that sheet of paper hanging on the wall, and Moesha initially didn't have the excitement for her friend, because you got to remember why you set out to do this in the first place. You didn't set out for you to make the team. The goal was for your girl to become a Crenshaw cheerleader. And when you saw, when her name was on there and that sheer excitement that Kim had, that, oh my God, I made it. It was like.
Again, sometimes pride hits you at the wrong times. And sometimes you have to learn how to put your pride aside. So again, I do understand what you're saying. It should have been an overjoyment, like, oh my God, but sometimes when it hits you like that, you be like, what the
As a 30-year-old, because right now we're looking at Moesha in our 30-year-old eyes. Mm-hmm. In 2020, in the year of our Lord, if you tell me some exciting news, and their first response is, oh, you got a friend?
Again, with my 33-year-old eyes and my 33-year-old views, I just see a kid whose pride was very hurt, and they didn't know how in that moment it should have looked for her to be happy for her friend. Because you're right, the ultimate goal was for her just to support and not really necessarily get on the team. Getting on the team should have been a bonus for Moesha. And just in that moment, it didn't show that it was a bonus. It showed it was like, dang, like that's my first real L, like, and I don't know how to take it because I'm used to being on top. So in that moment, she had a bad friend moment, which we all have had.
We all have had bad friend moments.
But it's the totality of it with me. When it counted, Moesha was there for Kim. As we see that spinoff. But
we won't get into the behind the scenes of Moesha. We're only gonna stick to the script. So now, not only before we move on about what are you going to teach your kids? Because I feel like when you're a teenager, some of how you are as a teenager can shape how you are as an adult.
That part.
And so I just feel like you need to be accountable even in your teen years, because a lot of us haven't really shifted too far from our personalities as teens.
That part.
We've matured in a lot of ways, but personality-wise, it's pretty much a constant.
That's true.
So I just feel like there were several instances. So another instant where, and this is when Moesha was being a trash daughter.
Can't wait to hear this.
When Frank Kappa Appleside Mitchell, a brand new shining Saturn with the roof.
I knew this would be the issue.
With the sunroof.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you what my car was in high school. The MTA bus. Transportation Authority.
Not the MTA.
Period. So for you to walk yourself to the garage and you to say to your dad, really? A Saturn? A Saturn? She should have been slapped across the face, period.
Well, minus the exaggeration. did
Is
not
it an
say,
exaggeration, or did Moesha?
she did not say I sad, and she did not do any of that. She said that it wasn't her. Because in her privileged middle class mind, Moesha had it set in her mind that she wanted a Jeep. And she thought, because most of the time Moesha got what she wanted from Frank, honestly. And so when she saw that, she was like, wow, like, now mind you, this is the spoiled part of Moesha. So I'm not disagreeing with that saying that she should have, been grateful for what she got. But Moesha was raised to be such a free thinker and to think on her own, which I think was a good trait that Frank fostered in her. Because Moesha was smart, a straight A student. So she always thought for herself. So when she came back and flipped it, it was like, well, look, if I can find what I want for the same amount that you paid, what would be the difference? And the forward thinking is what had me that this girl was really smart and she knew how to leverage her way to get what she wanted. Now, in the end, she didn't get it, but she got what was close to what she wanted. And so I just feel like at the end of the day, I don't feel like she was ungrateful. She just knew, she was just so determined that she wanted to get what she wanted. She wanted to feel comfortable in what she wanted and not what somebody else gave her. And so it comes off, again, I agree that it comes off spoiled, it comes off entitled, but I felt like a lot of things that she got was because that her mom had passed. And because, he was trying to, suffice the fact that this girl does not have her mother and that he married Dee very fast and their relationship went very fast. So a lot of things I think he gave her to, supplement that. So again, I get what you're saying, that it did come off spoiled and bratty, but at the end of the day, she came with the facts. And she flipped it.
I think you just want to counter me.
No, I'm not counter. At the end, he even told Dee, he said, I've always raised Moesha to think on her own, to never follow the crowd. And so in this instance, he couldn't come back and say, well, no, you being spoiled, when he always raised her to be that strong-minded kid. So that's what I'm saying.
You bring up a really great point when you talk about him teaching her to think for herself and negotiate and use leverage. That is something that a lot of young women don't have, that self-autonomy. And that is something that we can learn from the Moesha character. Maybe not always taking the first offer. I feel like Moesha in 2020, we can imagine that when she's gotten different positions, she was able to negotiate her salary, do those things that are important that women don't do. There have been studies that say that most of the time women don't negotiate their salaries as much as men do.
Right.
And so that is a good trait that Moesha had, but I just still find it to be poor character to, not accept the car that, a car that you didn't have to pay for from your dad, a brand new car with no issues. But I guess I can respect the fact that we as women, I just like that perspective. If you don't want something, no matter how shiny it is, you don't have to accept that. And I think that's what a lot of women, especially Black women in our culture, are taught, that, girl, he got a car, or, it's shiny. Go towards that shiny thing when maybe it might not be the best thing for you individually. So that's a really good point. But also, I'll say Moesha, in my 30-year-old eyes, was very terrible towards her stepmother. Terrible to her stepmother, because we've seen situations where stepmothers can be from hell. They're not trying to be understanding. They're not trying to see your perspective. But Dee always tried to be there for Moesha. She tried to understand that, yes, I know your mother has passed on. I'm not trying to be your mother. I just want to be here for you as a woman, adult. Moesha felt like, her mother had been dead for quite some time, because there was some language with Moesha saying, well, I was the one that cooked my dad and Miles dinner and food, and I took care of them. And this woman comes in and says, hey, you're a teenager, you're a child, enjoy that. I'm here to care for all of you. And I don't think that Moesha completely respected her in that regard. And she was very just rude, just flat out rude to D.
Well, what I would say is that if you notice in the first episode, I think it actually was the pilot episode. Mm-hmm. She let it be known how long they dated before they actually got married, and if I remember correctly, it was a very short time span, like less than 9 weeks or less than 10 weeks or something like that. And so for a girl to grow up, essentially playing the wife role, even though she was the daughter and taking care of 2 men, mm-hmm. and having another, I would say D was an alpha female, to come in and kind of, I felt like, a lot of times people like, oh, Moesha was so rude, but a lot of times people are not highlighting the fact that a lot of D's way that she said things was a little slick and a little, and a little kind of abrasive, to the point where it's just like, well, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? Like if the weeks that Moesha said that they dated, I'm like, well, how do you even have the audacity? You need to feel your way into this cycle before you just take over. And if you notice, a lot of times in the beginning, the first season, Frank would pull her aside, or she would pull Frank aside and be like, why are you stopping me from this and that? And he was stopping her because he was like, look, they have to get used to you. Like, you cannot assert yourself into a situation, almost like a new boss just coming in and not taking the time to see how things flow in the office before they want to assert all the changes right away. And that turns a lot of people off. I learned that in the military. It turns like you need to assess the situation and only change things that are detrimental to the situation. Oh. But if there's no things that need to be changed to the degree where it's going to hurt you, I feel that she should have just kind of mellowed out. I would be, if, I would think that D would be very cautious to want for Moesha and Miles to like her, instead of just coming with this military type of, oh, well, I'm here now, and this is how it's going to be. I'm like, you're not Marguerite Mitchell, so you need to, you need to pull it back. You need to pull it back. You need to pull it back. And so I just feel like a lot of times people are not looking at it in the aspect that this woman came into these people's life and tried to change things right away, instead of settling in and letting it settle. Be like, look, I know that I came in fast. Our romance was very, fast.
A whirlwind.
And I don't want to disrupt anything that's going on. I don't want to step on your toes. If you was cooking, can we compromise? If you gonna do breakfast, can I do lunch, or can I do dinner, or something like that? But a lot of times it was just like, well, did you hear what I said? And this is then the third. And to me, those fighting words to me. So
that's that Flint in you.
It is. So I understand why Moesha, as another alpha woman to an alpha woman, was just like, well, wow, like, are you even acknowledging the fact that you're new? Like, can I get used to you first?
You're new to this.
Also a principal at her school. So you got to think, it's like she has to deal with her in that aspect and then turn it off and then go home. And this is her stepmother now. So I don't think people factor that in, that, again, this person was a child. She wasn't another adult. She was a child. And she had to get used to that. Now the attention is not just on her and Miles, it's D, then them. And so, you know what I'm saying? So that's an adjustment for a child. So people are not factoring in there. They always want to just go straight at the main character, which is Moesha, that she was trash and she was this, but not focusing on the things that was coming at her that she had to deal with at 14, 15, 16 years old. Factor that.
David, you just let us have it. Baby, you had me at assess the situation. That's where you had me at. You had me at assess the situation, because change is hard for us as adults. So change can definitely be difficult for a child. I can even attest to my own child, bringing my current, spouse into the fold. And when he was just my friend, my son was all, hey, he's our friend. But when he realized like he wasn't going anywhere, it was like, ooh. You know what I mean? Because my son was just used to it being me and him.
Right.
For 7 years.
He was used to being, even though he was young, he was used to being the man of the house.
Yeah, and he was just used to having all of my attention, my bandwidth, you know what I mean? And so it's like, oh, we got other people on the server, and you know, he's making it a little shaky, you know what I mean? So I can respect that point, David. You know,
and I just want to highlight another thing, another example of, you know, how the adult should have approached the child was that in the episode where they had a garage sale in their home. And I don't think that Dee realized that a lot of the things that were still inside that home were stuff that Frank and Moesha's mother picked out together. So I feel like it should have been a conversation with Moesha, and not just Moesha, with the whole family, like, hey, well, can we assess the items that we are willing to get rid of and some of the items that we are willing to keep? Because that couch had an emotional connection to Moesha, and that's why she went off the way that she did, because she was like, dang, you're just trying to erase every single piece
memory of my mama. You know, my mama gone, so I can relate.
That's what I'm saying. So people kept
I'll
thinking,
fight you over an heirloom, okay?
so people kept, you know, they so quick to say like, oh, Moesha was a brat and she was this, but not knowing that this girl does not have her birth mother alive with her to go through all these things growing up as a teenage woman. So when I don't think she wanted to, Dee wasn't the problem. It's just that you're selling something that her mama bought and that she can remember buy every time she walks in that house. So for you to get rid of it without having a conversation with her as the adult and Moesha as the child, that's a lack in parenting to me. So that
okay, let me find out you're gonna be somebody real good daddy. Let me find it out today as we discuss Moesha.
I am.
Okay.
I can just go through stuff that I've been through, and I just thought about like I would do things this way to make, because I feel like a lot of times parents don't take the time to explain why things are the way that they are and why did they do the things that they do. It's more of that, you know, don't question me, just go along with it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of kids are intelligent and would understand like, oh, we're having a garage sale so we can make room for new things. And we can keep some of the things, you know, here, you know, so that you can still have that emotional connection, but still be able to move on from that. So I just think a lot of times it just takes just a simple conversation. That's all.
I can definitely respect that. The other thing that to me, you know, was questionable about, you know, just these little instances about Moesha, and I think now that we're into this conversation, and I'm like, was Moesha really trash, or was she just, it's like what you said at the beginning, like just a normal teenager going through the ebbs and flows of life. I
mean, that's you have to live and learn to be able to grow. You
gotta live and learn in order to grow. And that's what when I think about my son, sometimes as parents, sometimes we yell at kids, like you say, and we got to realize they've only been on the earth for so long. At this point, my son has only been on the earth for 1 decade, while I've been on the earth for 3 decades. So my view of things is going to be completely different than his, and how he's going to respond and react. And sometimes I think we expect people to, you know, our children to be at the level that we are, when it's like we have a whole plethora of experience, decades even of experience.
Right.
But one of the things that, you know, bothered me about Moesha is when she won those tickets to the Mega Jam.
Mega Fest.
Yeah, to the Mega Fest, which was lit. I wish I could have been. I really wanted to be a part. And your 2 closest girlfriends, you didn't even get them in with you because you allowed this dude to talk you into letting him bring his cousin to his management, who happened to be 112. And then your girls missed the whole concert.
Well, Tynee, if you're going to address the situation, you have to address it the right way. There was definitely.
You gonna check me on my show?
I'm not checking. I'm just saying. But just if you're gonna say the facts, you have to say the facts. They actually did go in first. They actually did. What they did was they handed their tickets back to Q and his cousins, which, you know, everybody knows was 112. So what happened was when they got into the second part of the security check.
Right. But pause.
they did not have any tickets in hand because 112 had them.
Right, but what Moesha could have done as the winner of the tickets was to be like, those are Kim and Niecy's.
Yeah.
2 of those tickets are Kim and Niecy.
Yeah, now she could have done that. She could have done that. So she started off good. But
She started off good with good intentions, and
right.
I understand as a teenager when we into a boy hard like she was in the queue, and you think he's just with all the amazing ideas. That you just go along. But no, at that moment when they were like, ticket, she's like, I'm the winner of the contest, and 2 of those tickets are Kim and Niecy. You just let the girls hang.
And if you really want to take it a step further, what really should have happened is that when she went to go pick up Q and he had the group with him, his cousins with him, she'd be like, look, I just, being the forward thinker that she was, I have 4 tickets. It's not going to work with 9 people. So I'm sorry that you thought this was going to be their big break, but they're going to have to find another way to get in. But they're not using the 4 tickets that I have. That's what that's what really should have happened. It really shouldn't even have to do the pass ticket. All that shouldn't really happen. But as a kid, like you said, she was in, pretty much anything Q said was golden.
Pretty much.
Kim and Niecy was with it too, because Kim was boy hungry and Niecy was too. So they was willing to have them in the limo. They were like, we got this big ass limo, but not thinking about the consequences of how it's gonna unfold when they got.
But maybe that's a teenager thing, because let's just take 112 out of it. It's still 5 people on 4 tickets. Because Hakeem is your best friend, Kim and Niecy are your girls, and then it's your boyfriend. So that 5th ticket or that extra, that would have been a hard choice. And when you're a teen, even now sometimes as an adult, you want to please everybody.
Because what should have happened was that the guy, you remember the guy, the guy who owned the radio station.
Yeah.
See, what should have happened is that he basically, they should have met each other there, so that she could have gave the 4 tickets to Q, Hakeem, Kim, and Niecy, and she has the backstage thing, so that has a ticket, so then she wouldn't have to worry about 5 into 4. And that's what really.
That's that splitting us, because we would have worked it out. we would have got everybody in.
Right. That's what really should happen.
And now, David, you just really brought up some really great points, and I don't want to lament this talk about Moesha any longer. What I have concluded from this conversation is that Moesha may not be trash, that she's just a regular teenage girl navigating through this space called life. And sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we get it wrong. But
and that's what makes you human.
As long as we learn our lesson and learn from what we did, that's all you can ask for.
And that's what makes you human, is that you're able to make mistakes and correct them, so that you do better in the future. And I feel like she was a perfect example of a real human being. We put this, I feel like a lot of people on Twitter and social media
They're going in on Momo.
Has put this extraterrestrial, image of her that she's just supposed to be perfect. But that was why she was relatable, is because she was making the same mistakes that we were making at that time. So that's why I refuse any slander on Moesha, because it's like she was a kid making mistakes just like us. All those group of friends made mistakes. All those group of friends gossip about each other and talked about each other and did things. She was not the only one on there, but because she was the title character, that's who we want to attack. And I'm not with it. I'm not with it.
And my final thought on Is Moesha a Trash Ass Friend is that we were teenagers doing the same thing. We was on 3-way. We was friends with one person one day, but at the end of the day, at them games or whatever, we all came back together. I think as 30-year-olds, we have a complex about ourselves, maybe a false sense of reality now, because now we're looking at somebody else to think that maybe we weren't as bad, like you said, and we was up there doing the same thing, picking boys over our friends, hanging out, back talking our parents, all of the above. So in conclusion, Moesha was just a regular ass teenager.
Right. I'm glad I was able to provide. I'm glad I was able to provide some clarity.
Thank you, David, and thank you for being a guest on this episode of Tynee Talks. So in true Tynee Talks fashion, now is your moment to give your shout out. So you shout out.
I'm shouting out my family, all my bros, LBs, yo to the good Nupes, all my Flint family. Yeah, just everybody just in this pandemic. Just, stay strong. Like I just follow the guidelines of CDC so that we can be free again. And if you need somebody to talk to, reach out to your family and friends. Like don't sit in silence, And when you participate in these online banters, come with the facts, man. come with the facts, man. Somebody like me, you're not gonna win.
First of all, David tries it. You see, I get a platform and he want to try it. You're done. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to David, my little brother, for being on the show. Yo to the good Nupes. And I want to give a shout out to Brandy Rayana Norwood. I want to give a shout out to Saya Norwood for brokering the deal that got my girl off of Thea and her own debut own show on UPN Moesha. I want to thank Moesha just for being, even though, the think tanks and Black Twitter is going in on my girl, saying that she was horrible and trash. But she gave us something to look up to as young Black girls during that time, something to aspire to with the good fashions, the beautiful braids, the whole aesthetic, just the whole Black assness of it all that Moesha was, that we can relate to. It was a healthy show, a funny show, fun loving. And so shout out to Brandy for just, even to this day, just being a great human being and role model. Shout out to Sonya. Shout out to Ray J, who always made a cameo appearance on the show before he got his own title character as Dorian.
3 different characters. I want to add to that. I didn't even think about that. I do want to shout out to Brandy. I want to give her flowers while she's still here. I feel like we wait a lot of times till people have passed, to do that. And I just say that she has always been the example of what solidifies Black history. Like nobody can take away your accomplishments.
Nobody.
I just, and also shout out to, Whitney Houston. Today is her birthday, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Nippy.
Rest in peace. And just,
this is going to air on Tuesday, so.
Yeah. Just shout out to, Whitney Houston and, Brandy deserve all the flowers. And if you ain't got it yet, go cop the
Go get B7, and we gonna end it on that note.
Go get B7.
And if you haven't already, like, share, subscribe to Tynee Talks Podcast, available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Spotify. And please note that you can also get Tynee Talks merchandise. Link will be below in the note. So leave a comment and let me know what you think. Bye.